from the savannah to the Midland and the Atlantic. Ambazonia has risen to fall no more. Ambazonia rise.
Dear Ambazonians on the home front and diaspora.
Dear Ambazonia freedom fighters in the home front and in the diaspora.
The Ethics Commission of the Federal Republic of Ambazonia is coming out to alert you that it is becoming more and more evident that the former British Southern Cameroons, aka Ambazonians, will soon emerge as the newest nation in the world.
We are calling on all of us to start preparing to receive Ambazonia as parents prepare to receive their firstborn child. Malcolm X said, tomorrow belongs to those who prepare for it today. We are already very educated, talented, and very rich in natural resources. Do all this guarantee a safe and prosperous Ambazonia? The answer is an emphatic no. Theodore Roosevelt said, to educate a person in the mind but not in morals is to educate a menace in society.
Ambazonians, it is time to start planning to restore our cultural and social values that characterize us as a people of good repute. Before our Republic to Cameroon invasion, we were respectful of each other, of the law, and of our culture. We earned our living through honest hard work, making clean money for ourselves.
Our values helped us to maximize the benefits of our natural resources as well as our human resources. Southern Cameroons were serene and clean, simply beautiful in spirit and in the physical. We all long for such a place to call home, and we can make it happen by God's grace.
Our local government areas and counties, are you preparing? Do you have an ethics commission in your local government areas, counties to serve as a moral compass for you? Do you have a copy of the Ambazonia Ethics Code and the Constitution?
All arms of government, do you have an ethics agency? Departments of DSS, HSS, Communications and IT, Education, DHACM, DFA and DEINR. Do you have ethics agency to serve as a moral compass for your departments?
Ambazonians, you need to know your rights by reading the Ethics Code and the Constitution.
Shame unethical behavior and reward good behavior in your communities. Hold leaders accountable. Be the watchdog of your communities and governments. See something, say something.
The church, you are the main research center of moral principles with the responsibility of moralizing the society. How effective are you outside the church building?
Maya Angelou said, when you know better, then you do better. Ambazonians, watch Ethics for an emerging Ambazonia every Friday at 10 p.m. Amba time.
Exclusively on ABC Amba TV. Stay tuned.
We the people, ABC Amba TV, Ambazonia Broadcasting Corporation. The voice of the voiceless, the voice of Ambazonia, connecting the world from Africa. With untold stories, Africa's best.
from this. Okay. We are not ashamed of the gospel. More than conquerors are we. I'm not moved by what I see. Only moved by the word of God.
At the champions and senior, everybody and senior, and senior, let's go there. At the champions and senior, everybody and senior, and senior,
We are champions. We are champions. We are champions. We are champions. Champions say hallelujah. 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 Over and over again we see the touch of your greatness, Lord, in us. Whoa. Come join me, sing now. Let's celebrate together. Come join me, praise now. Let's jubilate together.
At the champions and senior, everybody and senior, and senior, let's go there. At the champions and senior, everybody and senior, and senior,
We are champions. We are champions. We are champions. We are champions. Champions say hallelujah. 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 Champions say hallelujah.
You've always been a winner, you are the best. You one of a kind of challenges get on this. The top is made for you, trust me, nothing less. I know that you noticed. Dance to the beat, on this beat you can do anything. In the process, just get anything. Be you, be you. I'm feeling so high on this beat, but I'm high on the ghost.
Let's go! We are champions. We are champions. We are champions. We are champions. Champions say hallelujah. 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 Champions say hallelujah.
Sing it, be you. Sing it, everybody, everybody, no Dutchess. Let go.
Listen, Barabush. The pressures of life come to weigh me down, but I'm the moon.
Get trained as an IT professional from the comfort of your home.
Greetings to the people of Ambazonia and welcome to this very special program, Ethics for an Emerging Nation. Today we have an exciting program for you And this program is going to the core, what Ambazonians have been waiting and listening to hear, and where many Ambazonians have fought themselves to make sure that we get the real people on the stage. And today we'll be talking about ethics in an emerging Department of Finance and Resource Mobilization. That is going to be part 2, because we actually touched part 1 a few weeks ago. Now, before we get into the program, I want to let you know that we have a number of people in the house with us. Our panelists are Dr. Tom Ndula, Comrade Peter Tanshi, and of course, as guests, we have our able Nijo, who is poised and ready for action. And Nijo, even with Gwandula, you are always ready for action. All right. Nijo Kemche is the Secretary of State for Department of Finance and Resource Mobilization. And he's going to be accompanied as a guest by Ma Aringwa, the Secretary of State for Department of the National Treasury. And today is going to be a day with a date. Nijo is always smiling. And even when we are coming on a program like this, where there will be no finances actually flowing in cash, Ni is smiling because he has dominion and authority over this aspect. That before you talk, he has something to say. Anyway, before we get into the program proper, I want to send 21 gun salutes to all our ARF and to all our people who are sitting down there and watching and listening and getting ready and buckling up to hear what is going to be happening when we get down to Ambazonia. And before I go ahead, first of all, I always tell you that the people I'm dealing with are of age. They can speak for themselves. So I'm not going to speak for them. So I'm going to call on Dr. Tom Dula to introduce himself. He's one of the panelists today. And immediately after his introduction, we'll have Comrade Peter Tanshe, who will come in and introduce himself before we go over to our guest. In that order, please go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Pastor Commando. Good evening, fellow Ambazonians, and welcome to this show. Hearty welcome to Nijo, our untiring Minister for Finance, Resource Mobilization, doing all the wonderful draft together with his combi, Ma Irene. So I'm Tom Dula from Babisi LGA in Gabutunja County. I'm the Vice Chair of the Ethics Commission. And on behalf of the Chair, Ma Dorotingwa, I welcome you all to this show today. Thank you.
Thank you
okay.
Thank you,
Dr. Ndula and Pastor Commando. Welcome to Nijo, our able SOS for Department of Finance and Resource Mobilization. Welcome to all our televiewers who are watching us on TV, on YouTube, and on Facebook. You are highly welcome. I am Peter Tanshi. I come from Bamendankwe LGA in Mezam County in the Midlands. I am the ethics representative for Bamendankwe LGA. So that's myself. And we are passed over the introduction to, I don't think he needs to introduce himself, but he needs to talk to our SOS Nijo.
Yeah, over to you, Nijo, as he has said.
Brilliant. Can you hear me?
5 on 5.
100%.
Beautiful, beautiful, great. I'm privileged and honored to be on your very popular platform. This is fast becoming a hot cake as far as ABC TV is concerned. This program Friday evening, it's been watched all over the globe. So I'm privileged to be part of it, and of course, humbled to be with the my mentor, as I called last time, Dr. Ndola, who showed me around Berlin, 2019. Of course, Pastor Commando, you're one of those that I salute your bravery, your commitment, and the sacrifices that you put in. And of course, my brother from a different mom. Did you hear his LGA he comes from? That's the Birmingham LGA. That's my LGA. That's why he's my brother. We're next door, back home and here. And it's a very special evening for me to have the opportunity to be with him on the same platform talking Amazonia, Dream. And before I say any more, please permit me extend our very, very special congratulations to our stubborn ARFs. I call them stubborn, resistant. They cannot let go La Republique. So for that reason, I give them 22 gun salute tonight, and for all of them, for all that they're doing. And we can't ask for any more, but we're very, very proud of them, and everything we're doing is for them, for the home front. So it's an opportunity for us to always pay homage to them. So we're here, as you said in your introduction, Pastor Commando. This is phase two. When we finished last time, a few viewers expressed the desire to ask some questions about how their finances and the department is being run and what future we have for an emerging nation. So I thought, why not spare tonight's evening to be on this privileged platform. So I'm pleased to be here. Thank you very much for the opportunity. And of course, let's not forget your back room staff who are doing a marvelous job. Congratulations to your entire team.
Thank you very much, Nijo, for that precise introduction of yourself, and the comments ran after that. Very educative and also thought-provoking. And sincerely, today and tonight, we want to leave enough time for people at home front and around to pose you a number of questions, which I am going to be posing some of the questions to you, possibly waiting for those out there to pose their questions, because what I'll be asking you will actually be part of the mind of the people that are sitting out there. And so I will ask our technician to please put on the number so that the people can be getting ready to call in on that number, and we'll use it. I've sent the number to the technical room, so if you check it on your platform, you will find the number there. Please just hang it up for us before we go ahead. Now, while getting very much ready, I want to reiterate exactly the difference this interim government of the Federal Republic of Amazonia has as a model, which is different from other liberation movements, to the people that are listening to us right now, and to the Amazonians who are, let me use the word, shocktalized with the ploy of La Republique of playing the old game of fragmenting people and trying to go out there and stand on the highway and shout that they are divided. It's not true. We have gotten their ploy. And so we have learned to swim against the tides that they are trying to hang up. So before they come up with any game, we are already far ahead of it. So Ambazonians want to let you know that what you hear happening in Ambazonia is the old game of La Republique, which says that try to make them look as if they are divided, make them to look as if they are fighting, and then we can now conquer them. Meanwhile, they have failed because some of the branches that have fallen off from the interim government have not touched the roots. And once the trunk is there, there is hope that they will sprout again. And we are so thankful that the branches that fell off by deceit and by other ways are coming back. And the branches are getting stronger as the root and the trunk is still standing very firm. Very quickly, I want to let you know that Ambazonian Liberation Movement is very unique as compared to other revolutions in the world because of the institution of what we are talking today, ethics commission, which is during the time of war. Now, our fathers had this ethical foresight, which was one of an uphill battle to face to repair the destroyed morals since La Republique came into our territory and tried to hold us ransom to their immoral decadence that was rotting away. Now, what holds a nation together is its moral values, and their invasion, La Republique's invasion and occupation of Ambazonia, has taken a moral toll on Ambazonians, now making moralizing Ambazonia again a battle that we must fight to win. And we have gone fighting this battle and talking about it in all the departments of the interim government. Now, the assault on our morality began when La Republique took out civics from our school curriculum. The importance of ethics in a nation cannot be overemphasized. This is the right time for us to go around and talk about ethics awareness and campaigns in all tiers of government. After we have finished with the counties, 13 counties, we have finished and we are finishing with the tiers of government. And this particular day, with the ethics for an emerging nation as touching finance, is one of the very sensitive organs that or institutions that we have in Ambazonia. There have been a lot of speculations, those who have stolen, and they were shouting more than the ones that have not taken anything. And they stole some of the programs that was brought in by this interim government, and they tried to implement them, and they are not working for them. Yet they are not able to change the names. And Bock said, liberty does not exist in the absence of morality. And so this Ethics for an Emerging Nation is an educational program to help us, Ambazonians, with the information and tools that you will need to moralize our communities. Now, we have discussed all that. I will not go ahead because of time. And today, we are going back to repeat on ethics, on finance, and resource mobilization. I will have the main person here, Nijo. Before we give him the microphone and tell him to ride on, I would like the vice chairs and the ethics panelists to, in a brief, say a word before we give the real man for tonight the microphone to go ahead. Over to you, Dr. Tom.
Yes, thank you, Pastor Commando. Yes, we all know in any institution, in any gathering, any movement, dealing with money is a very, very important issue. As they say, the root of many evils. And right now in Ambazonia, what we've gone through and all what has happened with money, we've learned from all the mistakes, and today we have the best policies in place to safeguard our money, more transparency, more accountability, and we have the best people at the helm to take care of that, namely Nijo, the no-nonsense Nijo, and Ma Erin, who was described by Patasang, as being the goose that lays the golden egg for Ambazonia. That, of course, goes to Nijo also. So today we talk about ethics in the Department of Resource Mobilization and Finance. We would like to start with a recap of what happened last time. If Comrade Peter Tanshi wants to start, or should I? Go ahead. Okay, good.
Yeah, okay,
So,
let me start. Yeah, okay, let me start, and then after that, our comrade Dr. Ndula can then say the remaining things that I've forgotten. Last week, it was on this our program, it was the Department of Education, and I'll do a part of the summary, and my colleague Dr. Ndula will do the other one. This we looked at in that department, since education is very important and the ethics in education is very important, because no matter whom we are, no matter what we do, all of us have passed through school, one form of school or the other. So to put ethics in school, it's really at the core of this program. So last week, what was looked at, was expected to look at the relationship between teachers, the ethical relationship between teachers and students, ethical relationship between teachers and parents. This was done by our SOS for that department, Professor Beatrice Epote. Ethical behavior by the school administration with respect to the teachers and the students. And she looked at, she said there would be four core, I'm taking the core values for teachers. These would be dignity, fairness to all students, truthful, they should be very truthful in what they say, and responsibility towards their duty. So these were the core that she expanded on. And then for the students on the ethical front, she looked at the conduct of the students, which would be in an ethical fashion, the performance of the students in school, how they perform in school in an ethical fashion, and a general ethics conduct for all the students. So these were the bits which concern the teachers and the students. And maybe my co-panelist, Dr. Ndula, would look at the other parts which went over the air last week. Dr. Ndula.
Yes, hello. Yes, thank you. Well, yeah, the SOS for Department of Education and Strategic Collaboration further on talked about how the ethics, the code of conduct for ethics would not be limited only to the students, but to the teachers also. There will also be a code of conduct for teaching staff as well. Yes, all stakeholders in the educational field will get their fair share of what is due to them in terms of rights, privileges, salaries. Administrators will operate with integrity with fairness, with honesty, should be competent and independent in terms of decision making, not just marionettes of the system, but people having their own minds. And all will be treated fairly, equally, under the same law, applying the same law to everybody. There will not be like cases like in La Republique. It is how rich and influential you are that you will get the preferential treatment, that justice will be done to you. But for the poor kids, the poor parents, the poor teachers, I mean, they are left behind. That's what is happening in La Republique. That will be quite different with us. The host, Dr. Ritanta, talked about how what is happening today in Ambazonia with all the chaos, with all the miseducation that we've been having, our history being hidden from us, the facts that there was a Southern Cameroon's autonomous government with prime ministers, first of all, EML Indele, Dr. John Gufoncha, Joa Estimona, and then of late, former President Sisiko Ayuktabe, and now President Sako. All of that, of course, had been hidden from us. And he said that was as a result, the chaos happening today is as a result of the catastrophic educational system that we've inherited or we've had to endure under La Republique for over 6 decades. And our one and only barrister team, the walking encyclopedia of Amazonia, who was there at the time before our independence, which was actually stolen from us, talked about that we have restored our independence, and we've restored also the institutions, key in it being the department or the Ministry of Education, which we will have when we get to Boya. He talked about how it was in the 60s that the West Cameroon educational policy was instituted between 1963 and 1964, and then it was meant to train the whole person, educationally, morally, and culturally. So that's how the teachers were trained. They were then sent to the villages, to the outskirts, to be the teachers and to, first of all, I mean, trained in an ethical manner, of course. They were there to respect the customs and traditions of the people and to be of impeccable character and do their jobs well. So he talked about how the first teachers training colleges, about 10 in number, were mostly mission schools backed by the Catholic mission, the Presbyterian mission, and so forth. And only one was owned by the government. So fees were collected by the teachers who were, I mean, of high ethical standards. Not only that, but the punishment was severe if any money was misappropriated, ranging from being transferred to being fined to imprisonment, even depending on how severe the crime was. And later on, he told us of a story how later on in the later years, from classes 1 to class 4 in the primary school, fees was stopped. Paying of fees was stopped only from classes 5 to 7. And and in 1972, as La Republique took over the educational system, they somehow stopped paying teachers. Of course, in their corrupt manner, the money was there but being embezzled. And it's this money that was collected from the students as fees, master who would then share it equitably among all teachers. And then there was one headmaster who misappropriated funds, took the monies and put it in his own pocket. So he was severely punished, fined, and then transferred somewhere else on the condition that he doesn't teach any class above class 5. And we all know it is from class 5 that the fees were being paid. So he will teach classes where no fees were paid, where he will get little or no money apart from that given by the state, and the corrupt La Republique state gave no money to those teachers. So that's how ethical our teachers were and how severe the punishment was, deviating from all these ethical standards. So that's what I can recap from last week. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you very much for that recap for last week. And with that recap, we go ahead to enter into the business of the day with Nijo. The phone lines are open. Please, if you are listening to us, just give us a call on WhatsApp +5511-977-934-006. It's right there on the screen. Now, Nijo is here to answer all your burning questions. And I'm going to give you the time. As soon as I see your call coming in, I will allow you to ask your question for Nijo to go ahead. I would like to hear from him, making a recap of what we first said in part 1, and then he crosses over to part 2. And when that is done, now we can now listen to him give us the opportunity and the time to ask questions. Now, as a teacher today, we will not give him 30 minutes or 45 minutes, but we'll give him the normal time of teaching so that he can give the students, the people who are listening to him, time to ask questions. So we're not going to time him. If he speaks for 15 minutes, then that is a lesson. If he speaks for 1 hour, that is the lesson. If any minute he speaks, that is the lesson. We'll go ahead and ask our questions. So the microphone is right in on your table right now, sir. Over to you.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you, Pastor Commander, and thank you for the previous speakers. As I said earlier, it's a privilege to be here. So let me go ahead. But before I crack on, permit me announce to your viewers that each coin has two sides. You know, when you're talking about finance, we're talking about money, and each coin has two sides. So in preparation for this session to be as bonus to Ambazonians, to your viewers, we did agree for two of us, myself and my combi, Myrin, to be here so that we can look at that coin on the heads side and on the face side. Unfortunately, she's running late, but trust me, she will join us at one point. So if you asked your question and it was more towards the treasury, she'll be able to deal with that. If it's more towards finance, of course, and resource mobilization, I would be able to deal with that. So as we crack on in my dialect, it's say if you're waiting somebody for a journey, don't stay on the same spot, be crawling along. So when they come, they can join you going. So we'll be crawling along and waiting for my combi to join us. Now, to review my previous presentation, Pastor Commando and your technical team, are you able to put on the screen for your viewers to see the structure that we described verbally last time? I'm happy to describe that again, but if we have it on the screen, that will probably help people more. Otherwise, it's a structure that has various offices, and of course at the top is a Secretary of State for Finance and Resource Mobilization, assisted by a Deputy Secretary.
Yeah, I did tell the
okay, so they'll probably be working on it.
Technician
that's
in
fine.
the studios to put it on. So if it's not yet on, I'm sure he's working on it. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So I will crack on. So Yeah, while waiting on that. While and next to the Deputy Secretary of State is the Chief of Staff. Of course, in a department, you would expect a good number of people who would need coordination. So we have a Chief of Staff after the Deputy Secretary. And then below the Chief of Staff in that structure, if you're looking at left and right, on the left, we have the Department of Finance, headed by a Director of Finance. And then to the right, you have the Office of the Director of Resource Mobilization, of course, headed by a Director. And then again, below, white in the, on the side of the Director of Finance, there are 4 offices that part of the department occupies. And then we have on the other side of resource mobilization, there are 5 offices. So in all, 9 offices under the both directors, 4 on one side and 5 on the other. I will keep it there for now, or otherwise I can go through and let Amazonians know that it's easier for them to follow it when we're talking. But if we go on the side of finance, we will see that one of the offices or one of the desks or the offices in that directorate would be one that liaises with the National Treasury. We need that office, of course, because that is the Directorate of Finance. So they would be working with the figures that we have and, of course, matching them with what we have in the Treasury. Otherwise, there will be there could be some mismatch. And the issues that we have had, as you mentioned in your introduction, during this our struggle, which is now graduated and moved on to a movement, has been the issue of lack of or inadequate accountability, if you let me say so, inadequate transparency, inadequate checks and balances, and there's there were room for impartiality. So you were sitting on a budget, and you could choose what to do with it, and there was absolutely no person to check and ask any questions or to see if the figures that are meant to be are actually there. So we're trying to make sure that that doesn't happen again. And so there is that office which will be in constant touch with your treasury to make sure that the figures that we have in finance match the cash that is there. Otherwise, we can already tell that there could be trouble somewhere. And once you can tell, even with your body, once you can tell you have an itchy toe, you have an itchy nose, sometimes eyes, ears, there's something not quite right. So you can start taking precautions on your body, let alone on a whole structure. So once we can test that, we will know, of course, the measures will be there, either to go back on the figures and check if the figures on paper are actually correct. And if they are correct, then there must be something wrong with the cash. And so we can go back to the treasury and say, this amount was paid in and so on. So all those details will come in when we have the structure on the screen for Ambazonians to see. The next office is, of course, that of when we're focusing our income now for the National Treasury, limited to the drafts and to the donations that Amazonians are doing for the huge sacrifice. And I cannot thank Amazonians again. And I think I must apologize for taking so long during a program like this to pay special tribute to all Amazonians, everybody who has spent a penny as far as this movement is concerned. And if you're spending your money at this point, rest assured that we will do everything to account for it. But before we get to that, we need to really appreciate everybody, every one of us who has sacrificed the amount of money. I mean, when we look at the figures once this started in 2016. This struggle has been for 61 years, as is commonly said, which is a fact. If you go back to the Fallons and Fonchas and the Munas in their struggle years, this struggle had been going on since then. Now, if you look at the figures, probably some with no records, all we're doing is relying on hearsay. Beautiful. Look at that. That is the structure that I was talking about. So just before I get into that structure, I was saying if we were to step back to when this struggle started in 61 years ago, and the donations, that free will donations and sacrifices that Amazonians have given out, if you put all of that together to date, to the figures that we started keeping for drafts from 2020 to date, you will run out of numbers. And this is a fact. But we're coming to a situation where with this table in front of you, with this structure in front of you, you can rest assured that we would account for every penny that you sacrifice. So I have mentioned the blue boxes very clearly to you, Secretary of State, then the Deputy and Chief of Staff. And then, of course, I talked about the left and right, depending on how you're looking at that. So Director of Finance is to my left, probably same with you. And to my right is Directorate of Resource Mobilization. We were looking at the Directorate of Finance, with the very first office being that which was to liaise with your National Treasury to ensure that the figures that your financial secretaries all through Ambazonia and the draft monies that you've given and paid in agree with the cash that is supposed to be in the National Treasury. And I was saying that as soon as we can realize that there is a figure that the Directorate of Finance is keeping that is not the cash in the Treasury, we can start finding out where the issue is. Is it with the figures or with the cash? And that is already an indication that we are being more, we are introducing checks and balances. This is what you call checks and balances. And we'll talk about transparency, and of course the accountability would follow. So after that office, as I was saying, most of our income is based on the draft for now, and of course the free will donations. So there is an office that would bring up and support every LGA and county to redeem their draft. That's one of the headaches. So if you phone every LGA chair or county head and say, we just drafted your county, do you have any issues that you think you need help? The very first point that most of them give you is draft redemption. The people have had the goodwill to come out on a Saturday and pledge their money, but they haven't been followed up. And let me just, if I was writing this, I'll put this in brackets, because we need, as a nation, as Ambazonians, to educate ourselves to know what a draft is and what draft redemption is, what a pledge is, and when you pay cash. So this draft redemption office would clarify that when you draft, you are pledging. So on Saturdays, what we do on TV, on ABC TV, is we're pledging. Okay, I know some Ambazonians pledge and pay on the same day, but they have done two things at the same time on the same day, beg your pardon. So they pledge the amount of money and they walk up and go up straight to their bank and pay either by Zelle, by PayPal, or whatever, a Cash App, and whatever means they want, or pay directly online. So they've done two things on that day. Fair enough. We applaud that. But as far as a draft is concerned, you can come up on that day and pledge. And you would expect that from Sunday, somebody is going to contact you to remind you about your payment details. That would be redemption, following up from that draft. If you pledged on Saturday and nobody comes back to remind you, am I still on? Can you hear me?
You are on.
You are on.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I thought I lost you guys. Okay. Um, my apologies for the hitch there. So we were talking about draft. So when you draft, a draft, complete draft is two phases. You draft by pledging and then you redeem. So that office will take care of that redemption. Will help you give strategies to counties and LGAs on how to draft. So that was an advert for tomorrow. We'll come to talk about that. Sorry, I got lost. Okay, we'll talk about the mentioned draft, which is coming up tomorrow. Then the next office in that department is the award distribution. We all aware that when you draft 100%, so let's take somebody who was pledged drafted $1,000. The split is 20, 30, 50. So 20 stays to the National Treasury for national projects. 30% goes to your county, which will share with your LGA for local projects. And of course, 50% stays with your LGA. And you can use that to support your LGA, your ARFs, to support the widows, the wounded. You can use that to support all the other counties. You can use that in many other different ways to keep this movement going. And again, fabulous. We have been doing very well. We don't need to elaborate that. But the key duty of that office is to make sure that the counties that have cash pay the appropriate percentages to the various places. So pay the 20% to the National Treasury, and of course the 30% to the county. That is their role there. Then the next one would be the project execution. And this phase of our movement, that focuses on self-defense. And so that desk, that office would have somebody working with self-defense to make sure that the various LGAs and the counties are executing the projects that Ambazonians have drafted for them to use. This is something that has been lacking, but we're bringing it in to make sure that there is some checks and balances, some accountability, some transparency, and of course, we can see how we can work this all out together. Now, if we leave that directorate and move over to the Directorate of Resource Mobilization with 5 offices, the very first one liaises with the counties and the LGAs, to make sure that the LGAs and the counties have the ideas, they have the offices, the various offices in place. You have your treasurer, you have your financial secretary, you have your chairperson. Of course, once you are drafting, there is what we call the draft readiness. When we come in to get you ready for a draft, we check if all these positions are there. If you have an account, who are the signatories? And things like that. Okay, that's the role of that office. Then we have fundraising strategies. These are strategic partnerships, which will look at ideas. Is it just draft that my LGA can use to raise funds? Is this just through drafting that my county, MESAM, can raise funds? Are there other things that MESAM can do to raise funds? Those are the strategies that that office will be looking at, and of course speaking to the county executive on what to do. Then we have a donor database. We have been running this. This is the 3rd year, coming to an end soon. We should have a list which we're compiling to make sure that we can know how much each county had drafted in 2020, 2021, 2022, and of course, how many projects have been executed, checks and balances. We know all the issues about the coup plotters for the last 2 years, but this year, 2022, I can bet you we will have that list to make sure we know who has drafted how much and how much is going to go on their, of course, certificate. That, talking about a certificate, is the next office. There's the next office which we are inviting people to. This one you don't need to put in too much effort. Okay, we're looking for people to send out letters of invitations, acknowledgements. Once people make the payment, you can write a little 2-3 lines letter or text message and say thank you, appreciation. That's that office, the 4th office under the Directorate of Resource Mobilization. And of course, the last one, which is a link with us working with the Department of Communication and IT, there's publicity, graphics, flyers, and award certificates. There's so much work there. So we're looking for Ambazonians with IT skills who can do any of those skills to join us. And we got a team that we're building. But please submit your interest if you have any of those skills, so we can incorporate you into the IT department. Okay. That said, one of the few innovations, the department has grown in terms of recruitment, and the ideas coming up is we are trying under the database to accumulate all the support that an individual gives out per year, supporting all the various counties plus their draft. That amount should go on your certificate for the year. So, Comrade Tansi in my LGS, he supports almost all the counties every week that we're doing. So we need to have a collection of that total amount plus how much is drafted, and we put that together on a certificate. Otherwise, there is not good accountability. So we can know that this is how much it is. If we did that for 5 of them on that LGA and 10 of them on all the other LGAs, or 15 of them, all the other LGAs, and know how much they each contributed by supporting other counties and the amount they drafted, we will be getting as close as possible to how much money should be in our treasury. Now, if those figures are not adding up, as I said earlier, then there is something wrong somewhere, and we can begin to check to see where. If this person, if 5 people have spent $5,000 per year, you'll be surprised that some people spend more than that. If 5 people spend 5,000 supporting different counties and their draft, that amount of money should be able to be accounted for. So that will go on their certificates, that will stay in their various counties' records, and we can always use that to match how much money is in the national treasury. So, Ambazonians, this is how much this department is doing to make sure that all the money that we've drafted is accounted for. There is transparency, there's checks and balances, and of course, we avoid all the impartialities that we have experienced between 2020 and 2021. We're trying to avoid that. And so far, so well, this year, we haven't been in situations of any alarms, but whatever happens, we will be able to deal with. And if you have any ideas, please, the next phase of our projects for the IT in that department is creating emails that we would request ABC to float during your project. So Ambazonians with ideas how we can do this better can always submit those suggestions. And one of the emails will be for complaints. If there is something you think is not going right or could be done better, please submit such complaints or suggestions to us, and we shall look into that. Thank you, Comrade Commando. I hope I didn't disappoint you.
No. That was what I was listening and waiting for. Thank you very much. I think when Nijo speaks, there are no loopholes for a lot of questions for amendment, but questions for more understanding, yes, they are there. And so our lines are open. I want to thank you so much for that explanation. It is so clear, down to earth, that even the Ambazonians that have been deprived from going to school can understand what we are saying. That's what we are talking about. Now, the first question, before we can get any caller calling from outside, the first question I would like to ask you, Ni, is what is the difference between your department and the National Treasury? And what are the ethical advantages of separating the two departments, resource mobilization, finance and resource mobilization, and the National Treasury?
Right. Thank you. That's a very straightforward question to answer. The difference between finance, let's just stay with finance, and the National Treasury. So can I now? I wouldn't answer a question by a question, but I would have asked you, who is the richest person you know? Just give me a name. Do you know any rich person? Bill
Madam
Gates.
Buffet.
Now, maybe Comrade Tanshi will know, or Dr. Ndula.
I'm trying to make sure that you guys don't fall asleep. So that's why I'm asking you
Oh,
questions.
yeah, Warren
Let's go.
Buffet.
Let's go. With okay, let's go. Bill Gates. Who else?
Warren Buffett.
Buffett. Okay. Now, if Bill Gates is richer than Buffett, what does that mean? Does it mean if you got the two of them down on the road and looked in their pockets, Bill Gates will have more cash than Buffett on him?
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily. There we go. So that's part of the answer. So when you have money, you don't carry it on you. Okay. So the Department of Finance keeps the figures, can tell which county drafted how much, who is rich and who is poor, but that money is in the treasury. Okay. So when Ambazonian is when we get our country, when we have our structures fully functional, the National Treasury will be the bank of Ambazonia. That's where your money would be. That's where the cash is. But the Department of Finance keeps the figures because we're doing the drafts, we're getting the donations, we maybe selling one or two assets if that was the role of the Finance Department and resource mobilization. But in this case, no, it's not. So we will keep the figures and know that the total draft for 2022 is $1,300,000. We have the figures. That money is not in our department, is in the National Treasury. And that's what we're saying. We have to establish these offices. So if we're keeping the figures and saying the total amount of money drafted for 2022 was $1,300,000, if you go to the National Treasury, that money should be there. If that cash is not there, we should know where we've spent how much and where how much has not been redeemed. If we balance all of that, it should give us that amount. If it's not the amount, then there's something not right somewhere. And the simple answer is we keep the figures, the National Treasury keeps the cash. And so and the ethics of all of this, separating the two, is so we can introduce checks and balances, transparency, and accountability. So we can know which county executed which project, who was responsible for executing this project, who was responsible for this, and then we can put all those figures together and it should agree and balance with the cash that is left or has been borrowed by the treasury. We don't want to go into the borrowing. We assume that we always have excess in the National Treasury. So that's the difference. And of course, the ethics, of course, as I said, is for accountability, transparency, checks and balances to avoid me keeping the money and changing, or maybe changing the figures or losing the money or is being stolen or is lost and things like that. But if you get different people involved, then you can always check to make sure that the system is in place. Thank you.
Yeah, I want to just make a follow-up question. This very plausible and fence idea, I didn't say defense, I say fence idea that you have developed and put into this structure. Is it a new development or it has been existing?
Commander, you know, and I know that if we had these structures in place, the issues we have had, the issues we inherited, you and I inherited from those who started this movement before we got in, we wouldn't got there. I don't want to be calling the names, but the Tabinyans stand out, and
the answer,
rest of the
I got the answer.
Thank you. If we had this in place, we would not have had those situations. One of the things I read from a silly right out on the social media yesterday was that President, when we draft and people put in funds for the stabilization fund or President Sako's basket, the interpretation from ADF camp is that is the money for the upkeeping of President Sako. Sorry to say that, but
Yeah,
okay.
unfortunately, people who are not in the house cannot
Yeah,
actually
they can
know
say
what
everything.
is going on until they are told.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
so and that's why
And,
we are out to educate them. We are out to tell them. Yeah.
thank you. But the silver lining to that is at least they have a figure that they can say
Yeah. Right.
from Ndian, the president's basket was this, and so it was used to upkeep him. And from Mezam was this and was used to upkeep him, whatever that means. But in their own days, there was no figure, there was no limit. So
There
at
was no
least we've
figure.
made some
There was no
progress.
figure. Yeah. People who are very zealous in counting money and the expenditure which they have not contributed is very easy.
Yeah,
They cannot
yeah,
poke in and try to find out what is done with money that they have not contributed. Anyway, that is
absolutely.
by the side. Yes, and I know that, and I want to let Ambazonians know that this interim government is different from what they knew yesterday,
Thank you.
because men of honesty, men of ethical value that wants to make everything transparent have come in to let you know that your money is not being mismanaged or taken by any individual or group for anything. It is going for the purpose for which you are contributing.
It's meant for.
So if last
Yeah,
year, 2 years, you were not contributing because there were no real deals as far as your money is concerned, today be rest assured. Now, let me go ahead. Does your department work in collaboration with the LGAs and counties finance departments?
with that question, I'll just refer you to the diagram. Yes, one of the offices under the Directorate of Resource Mobilization, the very top one, answers that question. We work with them, and so when we're doing the draft, yeah, so the very top one, you can see is color-coded, so it stands out to let Ambazonians know that that is the office that works with the counties and the LGAs. So before we draft any county, that office meets the county on a Tuesday and on a Friday. Between Tuesday and Fridays, if the counties have any issues, they are happy to go in and help. And then, of course, on Saturday, we are there to draft with them. So that's the answer is a yes, and that's that office. To get them ready for drafts, make sure they're draft ready, they have a bank account. If they don't have a bank account, we agree where their money is going to go to. We agree how, if the money gets paid into the National Treasury, how do they get it back out? We agree on their LGAs listing out and making sure how many people have drafted from each LGA. We get all those lists. So when it comes to certification, there are no ambiguities. We know that this LGA drafted so many people, this LGA drafted so many people, so this county has this total number of certificates, and the amount drafted was this. Yes, we do.
Wow. Thank you. How do you implement transparency and accountability and checks and balances in your department? How do you do that?
Again, we would go to that is on the side of figures, and so that is finance. And again, the top office, which is again color coded, links with the National Treasury to make sure that the amount of money, as in green, it liaises with the National Treasury to make sure that, I mean, when you have transparency, accountability, checks and balances, it means that the figures we have on the books and the cash in the National Treasury should agree. And once we do that, if there is a difference of 1 penny or $10 or $100, that means there is something not right somewhere, and we can go back and check and find out where that has gone wrong. Now, if it's a typo, then we can always find out, of course. If somebody has carried out a project and didn't report it, of course, we can then ask them to report properly. So that's how that office makes sure there is checks and balances to make sure that the figures agree with the National Treasury. And when we get down to project execution, that even becomes more glaring, because when you execute projects, it means you have spent some money. And when you spend money, the rule is you have to report. And when you report, you present your receipts. And of course, we would do the balancing of the books, as they call it in their jargons, and to make sure that the money that was allocated for that project was either spent in entirety or there was a balance. If there was a balance, then that balance gets paid back into the National Treasury. So it's a cycle. So it goes round and round and round. So it allows you to check at this point, check at this point, check at this point, and make sure everything stays the same in the loop.
Wonderful. Let me ask this question before I divert to something else. Another question. Please, our telephone lines are open. I'm sure that these questions we are asking, they are helping a number of you to understand the position and the structure of the interim government, especially as far as your finances are concerned, so that those who were making and had an escape route by saying that, well, the money is not spent well, we cannot follow up, and blah, 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 they will be able to know that it is not true. Now, let me ask this. How different will your department be from La Republique? This structure that you've given to us and so on, how different will it be from La Republique?
Thank you. I think that's an obvious question. How different we're going to be is the way we are operating. For those who have an insight of La Republique, I don't think they have an idea of checks and balances. I don't think they have an idea about project execution and reporting. Otherwise, the ring road would have been done several years over. Somebody would have reported to it. There's so many projects in La Republique that have not been executed and nobody reports it. There are projects that you're told you have a government primary school, the head teacher stays there, someone else comes to build a house in the school, the head teacher has no idea how much has been budgeted for that. In some cases, the PTA have to roof the building, so the government just does the walls, and then the PTA does the government builds the walls and the roof, and the PTA have to put the benches. Nobody has any documentation anywhere to show that this is how much has been allocated and this. But that, I'm using schools as a very local thing that most of us have had that experience going. But there's lots of other projects, lots of them, where you go into higher levels, then you talk about the dues and the towns and the roads in towns, the maintenance. All of those are issues that nobody reports on. Here we are. You can always refer to this chart, and you can, in every project, you can locate where that project is going to fall and how it's going to be checked, particularly project execution. Let's just take our self-defense, which is our main project for now, until we progress to another phase of this, our movement. It tells you how the money comes in, how we make sure the money is shared, how we also follow up to say this office checks and make sure that this project is actually executed, checks and balances, and then we can return the balance of the cash to the National Treasury if that be the case, or ask for more cash. So that's a difference. Pastor Commando is right there on the diagram in front of you. And of course, with our life experiences with La Republique, it's very, very difficult to know when a project is executed or not executed. La Republique has developed our minds, and those who still believe in them, that they are an unquestionable structure. They are unquestionable people. They unlike living on the crumbs from the master's desks, they are thinking that you don't have a right to be on that table. So you stay where you are. If you have some crumbs, live on them. You are not entitled to this. That is completely opposite. And that we're telling them that, look, that table belongs to every Ambazonian, and you can belong to it. You can have a say and not live on crumbs, but make the decisions, and make the decisions rightly. Thank you.
Nijo, I actually wanted to find out from you whether your department, or is there another department that follows up the execution of all the finances that are contributed, like we are getting into Mincham County tomorrow for a draft. Now, when this is done, is there a department that follows up the Mincham County, for example, or the LGAs, to see that the major goals of this draft for our ARF and the other humanitarian aspects that this interim government is at the forefront of carrying out? Is there a department that follows up to see that at least 70 to 80% of the people on the maybe home front or wherever they are have received these resources that people are contributing? Is there a department that does that, or you just get the contribution and then hand it over to the LGAs and the counties and you disappear?
Right. As a commando, one of the catchwords that you have in a movement like ours is trust. When you have an executive and you give them the power, the power to coordinate a county or an LGA, all they need is your trust. Once you can give them the trust, they'll execute. I mean, if you take Menchum for instance, so after tomorrow's draft, if you look at that structure again, all we do is the money that will be drafted into Menchum tomorrow, as we said, would be split. So 20% goes to National Treasury, 30% goes to county. But I know Menchum acts as a county, so you would have 80% to work with. And all we would expect is the trust that we have on the executive of the LGA and the Menchum County to coordinate those finances. But what we do as a national institution is the last office on the side of finance, which liaises with for project execution. Remember, is a representative of self-defense of the Amazonian National Security Council, ANSC, that will do that. That's why it's color-coded. If your technician can bring the chart again on board, you can see that the last office there has the yes with the self-defense. Because remember, self-defense is our main project at the moment. Thank you, technician. So you can see down there, the project execution is that is the only situation where after this draft tomorrow, an external audit, an external officer from the department will come to your county to liaise with your self-defense department to say, this is the report from resource mobilization to say, you were drafted this amount of money, this project, how much have you allocated for this project, and you executed this. That is with the trust that the executive, the county executive of Menchum and the LGA executive would, whatever amount of they have allocated for a project will be executed. But that's the external source that will come into the county to check that. And that office officer liaises with the ANSC, so the Ambazonian National Security Council. That is as much as we can do. And of course, as I say, trust that the county and the LGA executives would make sure that those projects will be executed. I don't know how many. As you are aware, some counties have different scenarios, different challenges, different projects in mind. So whatever project that Menchum is going to carry out after the draft tomorrow, we would have somebody go in there to check with them. And of course, most of our staff of the National Security Council have some experience. They've worked with all the other counties. So if Menchum needs some technical support, they'll be there to give them. And of course, supervise the projects that will be executed in Menchum from the draft tomorrow. I hope that answers your question, but please, elaborate if I missed the point. Are you there?
Me?
Sorry.
Are you there?
Actually,
Yeah.
yeah. It actually answers the question.
Thank you.
I'm seeing that this is the blueprint that the Ambazonian people are putting on ground, especially in this very sensitive department, where we need people who have the mastery of how it's going to enter and come out, and to tell the people of Ambazonia, so that those who did not know some of the loopholes should open their eyes and shine their eyes and see that the speculations and lies in these very last days will not be as it was last time, because there were actually loopholes last time. And may I ask, does the hierarchy of the country, talk about the president, talk about the judicial person, talk about the House of Representatives and so on, do they have access to all the counties and into their bank accounts to at will take out whatever they want to take out there for the departments and for the running of the country?
I pity my comment is not here, but the moment your penny hits the national treasury, it
Right.
can only be taken out through a requisition. So you have a form that you complete, and that form has a few fields where you have to say why you're taking the money, the position that you hold in the county, and what the money is for. That requisition has to be signed by 2 other executive members of that county. So I cannot turn around and go and claim money from my LGA from the National Treasury because I'm Secretary of State. No, there is a form for me to complete, say what position I hold in my LGA, what the funds are for, and how much. And then that has to be backed by 3 or 2 other executives. So you must have at least 3 signatures on the form for 1 penny to be paid out of my LGA's money in the National Treasury. That holds for the county. If any county wants to withdraw a penny that has been paid into the National Treasury, they have to complete that form. 1 person completes it, say why they want it, how much, and what their position is, and then have 2 other members of the executive to sign. I mean, if that is not checks and balances and transparency, you tell me what it is. But
No,
this
that
is
is perfect.
What,
That is perfect.
Okay.
So
Can I ask a follow-up question?
Go
Can
ahead.
I ask a follow-up question? Yeah. That. Thank you very much for that. But I think this might not be you, because this might be more of treasury. But if you cannot answer, I think my Irene would answer it for us some other time. The explanation you've given for National Treasury is so great, and thanks for the relationship you are having with them, the checks and balances you are having with them. The other issue is, but one thing is now which still exists is the National Treasury is not yet centralized. They are still local treasuries. So these local treasuries can either be run by LGAs or by counties. So these are still local bank accounts. Let me call it that way. Some of the bad press we've had in the past, or some of the ways people have escaped with money in the past is they were a local treasurer, they kept the money, and what happened in 2021 and early part of this year, they just say, okay, I'm leaving the IG, I'm not part of it, or they became coppers and they just went away with the money. Even with this structure, National Treasury is fine, money difficult to get out. But is it not too easy for those running local treasuries to escape with this money? I know this might not be your remit, as I said.
No. Thank you, Comrade Peter. But I think it's a question of the situation we find ourselves. It's not a question that is directed to the Treasury or to the Department of Finance. First thing I would say is that the policy of the government is that members of the LGA with the local account you're talking about, or members of the county of the local account you're talking about, have the decision to make. They have the decision to make. And this decision is based on the trust that they have on their setup, because it is their money. Remember, this government doesn't have money to pay into those accounts. It is those members who pay their money into those accounts. So the policy is, if you don't trust that local account, pay your money into the National Treasury, be in your LGA, be in your county, whatever setup you have. If you don't have the trust of that bank account, pay your money into the National Treasury. And that's why the positions for every county to have a representative at the National Treasury is a situation that we encourage. Every county we go, we make sure we ask if you have a representative at the National Treasury. If you say no, then we will not draft you. We will only draft you to pay the money into National Treasury if you have somebody into National Treasury who's going to keep an eye on the funds. Because some of these stories, well, we know most of them have reality, but some of them are just stories that people are making up. So we need somebody there to make sure that the county is represented at the board level, and so at the National Treasury level, I beg your pardon, and so the money is paid in there. I can't remember what does that answer the question, or am I leaving out something?
It answers it to an extent, but it doesn't.
I just want to add something to it.
Oh, yeah. No.
There's still a that local treasurer can escape with the money.
Yeah, one of the challenges we face is that of infrastructure. So I think your question implicitly asking why every Amazonian doesn't pay into the National Treasury, and we still encourage local accounts. Is that correct?
Yeah, indirectly, yeah. So, I think that's a better way of putting the question. Yeah.
So the issue in that case is the two phases there. First is that, remember, when you draft, the majority of the money you spend is local. Okay, 50% of the money you draft spent locally. It's only 20% that is paid to government and 30% to the county. The rest stays
to
locally.
The county.
Now, if you're looking at transferring money between currencies and the rest of it, it's cheaper as long as the people concerned trust their setup. Then they're happy. This government is happy for them to keep 50% of their money and use it the way they want. Because if they put that 50% somewhere else and they want to use it, it's going to cost them money to get it. anyway. So, and the second thing is the infrastructure. The National Treasury, as we have limited staff. They're all volunteers. So when you have all these vast sums of money in one location, you need manpower to manage it, to be able to deal with the requisition, to be able to deal with transferring the money, to be able to account, to record the incomings and outgoings and the rest of it. So for lack of the infrastructure and the manpower and the resources, some of this eventually the government then relaxes the rule and say, if you trust your local bank, pay it there. If you don't, pay it into the National Treasury, but expect the hassle. Expect that you have to deal with the hassle to collect it. That's what I'm saying. But
Yeah.
I just wish my Kombi, I think she should be joining us soon. Can somebody check in the background, please? She should be joining us. But I think that's an
yeah,
of our department.
Nijo.
Yeah. Hello?
Yes, I think from what Comrade Tanshi has asked, I also want to add there that the local government's personal accounts should have the fortification that the National Treasury has, in the sense that you cannot just walk in the National Treasury as a county chair, as an LGA chair, and pick at anything
Yeah.
from there. That could be
No.
done too with the local accounts that they have. Without the signature of 2 or 3 persons, not one single person should be able to draw out money from the account. I think if that is done, it will go a long way to protect the county and the LGAs from one
Absolutely.
wolf, collecting the money.
Yeah.
All right, that was just what I wanted to
Absolutely.
contribute to that.
Yes. And I can understand that pain from you, considering the issues of Menchum.
Yes. We are very, very wise now. I still have we have a few more minutes to go.
Yes.
May I ask you?
I would like to ask something, please.
Okay, somebody was to ask a question. Go ahead.
Yes. So
I have about 6 questions to ask. So go ahead.
Yes, Nijo, I mean, kudos to you and to your department, how our monies are being managed. I mean, just first of all, one comment for some who claim, IG thief money, this and that. And I've spoken with some people and said, okay, you don't trust people who hold the money. What about 80-90% of that money is being treated in the LGAs and in the counties? Go to your local county, to your LGA, and not only go there, but ask to be in the finance department so you yourself can verify and see how that money is. But such people, they will not want to even hear about LGA or county. So they just turn around and all that. There are people who don't even want to know what has been done to bring in more accountability and transparency in what is being done now. We are restoring that transparency, that strictness, and all that was there before 1961 and around that time. And so kudos for that. And yes, so the little question will be, what I hear, like, of those 20% that the LGAs, the counties, are to pay into the National Treasury, that it doesn't come from what the National Treasury is doing. If it's like at the draft that the money should should come through the National Treasury already, because those who redeem their draft in a timely manner, that money might already come in there, or how to encourage the LGAs or the counties to pay that money on time, what the National Treasury is doing about that. Thank you.
Yeah. Again, that is the position of the third office under the Directorate of Finance, draft redemption, and the percentage, where I think Pastor Commando had an interest in. And so he will be working with a team there to make sure that when we draft Menchum tomorrow, whatever amount of money comes, Menchum should pay the 20% to the Treasury for national projects. That is that role there. And if they haven't, if the money has been, none of their money has gone to the national treasury, then he has to make sure that his treasurer pays that money if it's paid into the treasury, into the local account, to use the expression of the previous speaker, the local account into the national treasury. So that is that office. That's the rule. And uh, did you have a second part? No. So what are we doing to make sure that is paid in? So there are only two ways to pay the draft. Most of the money this year for draft, you will be surprised that most of it is paid cash. Most of the support is paid cash. If any of the money is delayed, it's the draft of the LGAs or draft of the county. For the Ambazonian support that people come on Saturday and support, majority of it is paid by Saturday, Sunday morning, 60-70% of it's paid. So when you're looking at $21,000 for Indian last week, about 13,000 pounds was paid, dollars was paid by Monday morning. So the majority of the money that is spending is the money that drafted in the counties. So that's the difference we're having with this draft this year. There's a lot of cash that is being paid upfront. But from the question you're asking, some of the chairpersons get this money and don't pay it straight into the national treasury, and that's what that office there will be doing, to say, yeah, you've collected so much, please pay this amount into the national treasury.
Yes, I'm not trying to defend. Sorry, Doctor, you were trying to talk again.
No, I'm quite.
Okay,
I'm done.
good.
I'm satisfied with.
I'm not defending Minchim, but last time, even though Minchim was dealt with in the eyes of so many people looking, we did try to pay in our 20%. We did, at least we did. We didn't pay all because all was not there, but we did try. I'm sure that this time around, whatever comes in, Minchum is ready to pay off the 20% to the government. That one is a vow that we have made because we all understand what it is. Now, let's go. May I ask you, sir, are our natural resources under your department? And of course, if yes, what measures will you put in place to prevent the London sales of oil that we saw one man with a bag going to sell? I don't want to call some kind of names here. They are not very worthy in our, we don't make cheap publicity. So what do you think we'll have to stop that kind of a move from some people that may evolve in Ambazonia, though we don't want them to come up as we are talking on morals, because we'll deal with them very squarely. But in case.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Pastor Commander. There are three things. First, let me get this issue of 20% for mention out of the way. Congratulations for, if this is the plan you have for this year's draft. But last year's draft, it was not of your making. These are the things, when you see us come up with this structure, is to avoid such mal experiences from repeating themselves. So it wasn't, we can't sit here and blame Menchum or blame any other county. No, we rather we stay positive and fix the problem. In my village, it says in my dialect that when you see the clouds gathering, the sensible thing to do is to look for your brolly. Don't wait until it starts raining and then you start rushing around. So once you see the clouds gathering, start looking for your brolly. We are doing, these are preventive measures we're taking. So so we don't end up saying, oh, we blame, why didn't you do it this way? Why didn't you do it this way? We're trying to avoid that. So two things I'll say to your question in answer. First answer might be disappointing. So let me start from the second one, from the second part. The second part is that Department of Economy, Investments, and Natural Resources in your government. Okay, Department of Economy, Investment, and Natural Resources. Okay, so that takes part of the responsibility of us holding a handbag and running the streets in London away, because there will be you'll have to have two people minimum, one from this department and one from the other department holding that bag for that to work. So again, these are preventive measures. So we have already put in place, the government has put in place a situation where that cannot happen, that cannot work. You would need the SOS for the Department of Economy, Investment, and Natural Resources to be involved with finance, because don't forget, we are interested in the numbers. We're interested in the numbers. So as long as he's going to
Right.
do the natural resources and there is a number involved, we are very interested in that number. So we will need to be there, because it's not their place to keep that number. Okay. Their place is taking care of the item, taking care of the whatever resource they are going to sell. We will keep the figure that good. So it's got to be two people. Again, that is already a step that this government has taken to make sure that that doesn't happen. So the first part
Right.
of the answer was going to be a no. We wouldn't be this department on its own. So I didn't want to start my answer with a no. That's why I said, let me explain the fact that there are two departments involved for that kind of deal to happen, not one department, and no chance for an individual. And the reason just that it's a preventive, more sensible approach. A government cannot be an individual. A government is minimum 3-4 persons. That's what I would think of a good government, and all of that is
Right.
to ensure that there's transparency, there is checks and balances. You can keep away accountability because there's just them there at that time, but there's some transparency and there's some checks and balances, so that if you are going to deal something that's supposed to be 2 million and you're dealing for 1 million, somebody will tell you, no, let's go back and consult. Because once you have, let's say, two heads better than one.
Right.
So
One.
you
Yeah.
turn around and say, these guys are dealing 1 million. You say, no, let's go back and check, because this deal we know is 2 million, if that helps. So that's what I would say to that. It's not going to happen in Ambazonia. Nobody is going to
Okay.
call your items and sell down the streets in London. No chance.
Thank you very much. Ambazonians, I think let me exhaust my last question. Remember, our lines are still open. I know it's about 11 o'clock, I mean, to a few minutes to 12 to midnight, and you are still there, because I can see a number of you listening to what is going to happen. Remember that this is the strong point of a nation. When the finances are well managed, even the poorest of the poor, they will have a shelter and they have something to eat. And
Thank
that
you.
is what we want for our community. We don't want these gullibles and these people who are heartless and
I
working for
know.
themselves and not for the community. And that's why these
Yeah.
structures are there to remind us. Now, let me ask you, sir, you also do human resourcing. Have you thought of tapping into the wealth of experience of some Amazonian parents who have retired from La Republique? Not to copy the terrible governance that La Republique carry, but then who have retired from the Republic government and are in the diaspora with their children. Have you tried to see how to tap into these resources from such people?
Right. Commander, you will know. I think you can answer that question for me. First, during our first presentation, we did request that we've opened a recruitment phase, and which you indicated your interest. And of course, I was labeling you belong to one of those offices. Last week, during the Department of Education and Strategic Collaboration presentation, Professor Epote did mention of as well at the tail end that the department needs volunteers to join her run the department, and there's been a few circulars. The government's policy is any Ambazonian with skills that are willing to help. Remember, this movement is being run by volunteers. So the more, the merrier. So we're looking for all of these parents you're talking about, all the expertise. All they need to do is indicate what skills they have and what department they like. If for resource mobilization, anybody can contact you, Commando. You have my number. Send them over to me. We are doing that recruitment for all the departments. Remember, resource mobilization entails finances and human resources. So if you are in the corporate world, when you're looking for work in a company, you are referred to the Department of Human Resources. So we are here. If you're keen to join any of the departments in the in the structure of this government, or you want to join the county or LGA executive to showcase your skills, please contact us. Contact your LGA. Contact your chair. Contact your county. The opportunities are open for all Ambazonians, irrespective of whether they've got office skills from La Publique or wherever. We just need skills. We just need people with goodwill to come and keep the missionary running. We need the people. And one of the things we need to bear in mind is for Ambazonian to be what the dream we have, we would need more than tenfolds the population of Ambazonia to run the economy that we have on paper for Ambazonia. So we would need people to start doing this by volunteering. Show the skills that you have. Don't wait until it comes to a point where you need to be paid before you want to do some work. No, get involved now. We can know where you belong and what skills you have. So please, if we can make this appeal, anybody with any skills who wants to join any department, either at your local level, at the local LGA level or county, or at one of the departments, please contact us, contact ABC. I think, Comrade Paddy, we will soon be sending out an email, as I said earlier, for the department for anybody who has any suggestions, any offering themselves for volunteers, and we can get you involved. You could see from that structure, we've got 9 offices to fill with staff. So we need staff. And if we had four staff per office, 4 times 9 is about 36. We're way short. So we need as many people just in the Department of Resource Mobilization and Finance. Now, let alone the National Treasury, let alone the HSS, let alone the Department of Economy and Natural Resources. There's the Women's Affairs and Education and Strategic Collaboration we just mentioned, and of course communication and IT. We need all of these people to come and support us and keep keep the movement floating. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And we want to announce here that the Ethics Commission is looking for Ambazonian parents, Ambazonian people who have worked in La Republique du Cameroon to come in here and share their little experiences with us. And as Nijo has said, we will need double what we have today to really handle the resources of Ambazonia. Many of you who have been eating crumbs, you don't know what we have in our land. It's just wickedness that La Republique did not want to have everybody have a basket of food in his house. But Ambazonia is meant of making it. In fact, I heard some people saying that in the next 5 years, when we are back home, talking about Rwanda will be at the back. We are going to have something because we have the resources, and I believe that very seriously. And the announcement and the appeal Nijo has just made, I fall into it completely. We need hundreds and thousands of you as volunteers to come in and start doing some work now. All right. Thank you very much, Nijo, for. Unfortunately, we didn't have the treasurer here today, but we are going to have another show, I believe. I would like to hand over to the panelists after listening to this exhaustive. I don't know how to call it. Whenever I sit near Nijo, I don't want to let him go. But time is running, and we must just have to go. So over to Comrade Tanshi. What do you have to comment as your last words, and Dr. Tamdula as your last words, and then we'll call it quit for tonight. Meanwhile, Nijo,
Yeah,
get ready and give
okay.
us your last word.
Yeah, thank
Yeah,
you
go
very
ahead.
much. Thank you very much, Nijo. That is my brother and friend from a different mom. If those two combine. So I really like the way you go into details, the explanation, the plucking of or the blocking of the loopholes that we've suffered in the past. So it's good, this thing. It was like you were caught in the middle of the road and you just have to fight. We made errors. I'm very, very happy. I know how judicious you are. You've blocked the hole so well, and I'm so impressed. And this should encourage those of us who are watching, either on Facebook, YouTube, or on TV straight, that this is how we would, ethics is at the center of this, how we will take it over, and especially with our money, we are flying, we will go flying. So thank you very much for that detailed explanation and for the structure you have put in place. I'm really excited to get that. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Dr. Tom.
Yes, thanks a lot, Nijo, for coming on this show once more. I mean, you topped your performance of last time, as you always do in the drafts and in the preparatory meetings. You're one of those tireless Ambazonians who really have come to the realization, as I think that this is the duty of our lifetime. I mean, I'm here, I have gray hair, and I would say of all that I've been doing, of all the duties I've been assigned to do, I have two daughters, and doing this and that, having people to take care of, taking care of 8 million Amazonians, thinking of their lot, is the crown of it all. I mean, I would never complain about anything. On the contrary, I mean, I would say, why would those complaints not come to me, and all that? We are living in this time. We have been put into this place. Our former president Sisiko, he said we were born at this time. To God put us at this place and time to do that job that had been started over 60 years ago, to finish it. And we are there finishing it. I mean, we are making big diplomatic breakthroughs, and people are really coming to know about us, and we should get that seam should be gathered up again. Corona came and did some break. So now that we can go out, we should go out as much as we can to demonstrate, to talk about Amazonia, to make the world aware of our plight. And not only, I mean, there's war here and there in Ukraine, but in Amazonia, there has been 50,000 people killed and counting, and hundreds of villages burned. And we've been in exile for over 5 years. It doesn't matter. For the next 5 years, I'll be there again if independence comes. So we appeal to everybody to come and then help us in this fight. This is our fight. It is not that one thing, as other Southern Cameroonians always say it, but come and then be involved, and then that will be something very fulfilling. So thank you for coming, and God bless.
Thank you.
Over to you, Nijo. Your last words to us.
Yeah. What I'll say, not directly to the panelists, but to all Amazonians following, that the role of a government is to address inequalities. That's what you expect from any government. But unfortunately, for 61 years and more now, counting, Amazonians have not had that situation. Amazonians have grown in a situation where the government that is supposed to protect them has given room for those they have for the few privileged to flourish, while the majority of society is left to ruin their situations. The last 5 years, Amazonians have been reduced to terrorists, they have been reduced to beggars, they have been reduced, removed from their houses and thrown into bushes, they become internally displaced. I think one of the things we need to do is check resolution 1349. That's the resolution that gave La République its independence. That's got nothing to do with our own resolution 1608. And for anybody who can recognize these two numbers that are two different things and still sits away from joining this movement to free Amazonia, it's a disgrace to the education they have. But what I would say for the few of us who are here, stay focused, be determined. This government, from the structures we've just explained, is the government that is going to address the inequality in our society and make every Amazonian a proud human being. I'll leave it there. But before we get there, we need every Amazonian get in touch with any department that you have any skills that you can share with. I've just listed the departments of educational strategic collaboration, there's women's affairs, the health and social services, communication and IT, Department of National Treasury, of course, the Department of Finance and Resource Mobilization. Please, any of these departments that you can, there's also foreign affairs. If you can help in one way or the other, or even at your local council, local governing area or your county, please contact somebody, contact your LGA chair, your county executive. ABC will direct you to all of those places. Contact Pastor Commando. He's on so many programs on ABC. He will know where to direct you. Thank you, Comrade Commando, and the panelists, Comrade Peter next door. We should be celebrating this tomorrow, but it's draft, and of course, I always call mentor Dr. Ndola. Thank you so much, and thank you for your crew in the background. It's been a privilege, and I'm really humbled. A disappointment that my combi didn't join us, but hopefully the day you invite her, insist that you want me to come to join her so we can balance this. Thank you very much and have a great weekend. Thank you.
Thank you.
Point noted. We shall emphasize that you should be there. And
Yeah.
so thank you, all of you, for joining us in the studios today, especially you viewers. I'm sure that this is not only talking to Ambazonians, but it's talking to the entire, especially the African society,
Yeah.
that the enemy has thought that they are the last of all. Before you go, I want to announce to you that in some parts of Nigeria, they have copied Ghost Town on Mondays. So most Mondays they call it sit in. They copy from Ambazonia. And so I was trying to do some transaction in Nigeria, and they told me that no, every Monday is sit in, which we call our country Sunday. So they are copying from Ambazonia. And I'm sure that what we are talking here, a lot of people are hearing also in Africa, and it will be a very big difference. Will create and pave the way for so many Amazonians, for so many Africans to see reason, because 20% of a people fighting not only 80% of La Republique, but fighting plus France and all the other voodoo nations that came around. I'm telling you, it means that the declaration that it is God's land is very true, because nobody can do this. Thank you very much, Nijo, once again for the education. Dr.
I
Tom,
forgot.
Comrade Tanshi.
My apologies.
Yeah.
I forgot about tomorrow. Please, Ambazonians,
Okay, go
all the
ahead.
viewers, tomorrow is the Menchum draft. Let us join hands, one for all for one. Come and let's support
Right.
and draft for Menchum tomorrow. Every one of us.
Yes.
If you're listening to this, please tell your family, tell your friends, tell your church, inform your neighbors. We're drafting Menchum tomorrow. And I couldn't have forgotten this. Comrade Commando, you could say something in your dialect, can't you?
Definitely. All right. Mkiwa se tongta nda welcome. CPC gaina shaka kwen kapinji atumpo fufata. Sene na ramza yenyan ji nda agas neze. Foras ni ifata mem tarafa atu ate bakana jete nanan dofa. Anisa 15th of October 2022. Kas ni jipa kam. Afopo tam tesegas nisi. Sene na gata ndu foras ni nda. Mba mankang se basically la ana. Gase two coin mine. A two line mine. Another labels 15th of October 2022. Gala Jim, Gia Minchim County. So for a gam turfu, Bomta one for all is all for one. So I think there's a zigui. We come gam to Gala Minchuma. But Zanya, everybody will agree, no zibo ni Minchim County. Outsitsu, Boniko Foka Jang draft. That Manko, what in? All right, I've lost my flow of thought. All right.
Wonderful.
My chip is off. All right. So tomorrow, na the day where Minchum County, it tell La Republique, say their game where did they play. We don't catch them before they start play, and they no go continue. So Muna come tomorrow for 7 o'clock for time for Ambazonia for sign time. No be for sign time. How do you call it? No be sign time. For
Evening time.
Okay. For evening time. For evening time. When I come help Ambazonian people the way they did for Minchum County, because one for all for one. So Muna come tomorrow. Now my invitation there. I'm gonna remember say the historian, that brother, the historian, he come out from Minchum. And then our Amber history, he come out for Minchum. And then you have Freedom Hour, one of the pastors come out for Minchum. And you get Ethics Commission, one of the parties come out for Minchum. So you see that all na Minchum, all na Ambazonia.
Don't forget me. I went to school in Modele for 2 years. Class 5,
Need
6,
Joe
and 7.
Here.
Yeah.
He come out for Minchum. Class 5, 6, and 7.
And 7.
No?
Yeah,
You
5,
see
6,
now?
and 7.
So there you go. Dr. Tom, the way they smile. And Dr. Comrade Tianshi, the way they smile.
Always be there. He'll always be there to support. Yeah, I'll be there. Yeah,
Okay.
All right.
So
all of us here will be there. We just need all the other people to join us tomorrow. Muna come support Menchum. Thank you.
See you all.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank
you.
you. Bye.
Thank you very much.
Salute to all our
Technician, there was
brave
an advert
restoration
about
forces.
Minchum. Where is it?
My cafe day up.
Thank you.
Yeah. Technician, you remove the advert from Minchum. Can you pass it, please? All right. Thank you very much, gentlemen. It is time for us to say bye-bye in the studio. Can we just say bye-bye, studio?
Bye, everybody.
All
Okay. You
right.
have a great weekend,
Bye.
guys. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
The Amber War Draft Award 22 is here. People, it's time to win again.
This is the time for us to draft until we draft. That must be our slogan and rallying cry now. And along the way, we should be asking ourselves some critical questions.
Are we still enjoying 3 square meals a day? While our boys on the ground lack the basic gear they need to resist the occupiers?
Are we still living a life of luxury and comfort? While our brave restoration forces lack medical supplies at the home front?
Are we still throwing big birthday bashes while our restoration forces lack basic communication equipment to maximize their efforts?
Are we still going on cruises and expensive vacations while our IDFs on the ground go without food and logistics?
Are we still finding excuses not to make the necessary sacrifices and drafting big while our restoration forces lack the game-changing equipment that they so desperately need to bleed the enemy?
On a daily basis, how much are we putting aside for our liberation, knowing that only through the fierce resistance are we going to liberate our beloved country?
Are we providing the federal government and the CIC the means to carry out some of the critical, intelligence and other special operations across the national territory?
As we ponder these questions, we must remember that a goal that is not funded is nothing but a wish. And we must not let Amazonia die as a wish, because we failed to fulfill our patriotic duties by making the great sacrifices befitting a great people.
The War Draft once more is coming to your county. Stand up and be counted. No greater victory was ever achieved than by greater sacrifices. We are enough, so let's draft, draft, and draft until we drop. Our existence as a people depend on that.
It is Award 22. Let us draft until we drop.
Get trained as an IT professional from the comfort of your home. Dynamic Tech Academy gives you a unique opportunity through our 6-month program, during which you learn skills to transition to being a full-time IT professional. Over 80% of our students have no prior IT background, yet the vast majority of them land jobs a month after they start applying. Our ultimate goal is to reach 100% student placement, so we work with every student until he or she gets a job. Upon successful completion of the course, we will give you a resume interview preps, one-on-one coaching from experienced instructors, and job placement assistance. Within this course, you get more than 300 hours of theories combined with real-world applications and practical skills you can apply on day one on your job. At the end of the program, our students can be certified as Red Hat Systems Administrator, AWS Cloud Engineer, AWS Security Specialist. Visit our website at www.dynamictechacademy.com to register.
We the people, ABC Amber TV, Ambazonia Broadcasting Corporation. The voice of the voiceless, the voice of Ambazonia, connecting the world from